The darkness of deep space broke apart as massive shapes emerged from nowhere. Ships the size of moons appeared one after another, their hulls gleaming with strange metals that seemed to drink in starlight. Captain Do-hyun Kim stood on the bridge of the eternal horizon, watching the sensors light up with data from a galaxy he had never seen with his own eyes. 800,000 years. That was how long humanity had been gone from this place. Do-hyun touched the command console and felt the ship respond to his thoughts. No buttons, no screens anymore, just intention flowing into action. He was 47 years old by birth, but he had lived through 600 years of cryo-sleep cycles. The math of time meant nothing when you traveled between stars that were so far apart that light itself took millions of years to cross the distance. Behind him, Dr. Una Park studied the incoming transmissions with intense focus. She was younger, only 32, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her specialty was understanding alien cultures, but right now she was trying to understand what had happened to the aliens who had thrown humanity out of their club so long ago. The Galactic Council. Even the name sounded old and dusty to Do-hyun. According to the historical records that humanity had preserved through all those centuries, the Council was made up of 12 species who believed they ran the galaxy. They had rules. They had laws. And 800,000 years ago, they had decided that humans were too dangerous, too aggressive, too unpredictable to be part of their peaceful society. So they had exiled humanity, erased Earth's location from every star map, put up quantum beacons around human space that basically said, "Stay away forever" in every language in the galaxy. They had been so sure that humans would eventually destroy themselves or fade away into nothing. They had been wrong. Una turned to face Do-hyun. "Captain, I'm picking up their communication networks. They know we're here. The council is meeting right now in emergency session. What are they saying?" Do-hyun asked. "They're afraid," Una said simply. "Terrified, actually. They keep calling us the primitive aggressors. They think we've come back for revenge." Do-hyun almost smiled at that. Revenge. As if humanity had spent 800,000 years nursing a grudge. The truth was so much more complicated and so much simpler at the same time. Humanity had been too busy surviving to think about revenge. Admiral Minho Choi entered the bridge. He was an old man, over 60, with scars on his face from battles fought in training simulations. Minho had never seen real war. None of them had in generations, but he carried himself like a warrior anyway. He had to. He commanded the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. "Status report," Minho said in his rough voice. "We're at the edge of council territory," Do-hyun replied. "They've detected us but haven't approached. I think they're trying to figure out what to do." "Let them wonder," Minho said. "We've waited 800,000 years. They can wait a few more hours." Do-hyun understood the strategy. Information was power, and right now the council had none. They didn't know how many ships humanity had. They didn't know what weapons humans carried. They didn't know what humanity had become during all that time in exile, and what humanity had become was something incredible. Do-hyun looked down at his own hand. It looked normal, human, with 5 fingers and skin and everything else you would expect. But underneath that skin was technology so advanced that the council probably couldn't even understand it anymore. His bones were reinforced with smart materials. His blood carried nanomachines that could repair almost any damage. His brain was connected to a quantum network that linked him to every other human across 40,000 star systems. He wasn't just Do-hyun anymore. He was part of something bigger, something the old humans from Earth could never have imagined. And he was still completely himself, still individual, still capable of making his own choices. That was the miracle of what humanity had achieved. "Sir, we're getting better readings on their technology now," Una said. She looked confused. "This doesn't make sense. According to these scans, their ships are using fusion drives. Basic fusion, like what we abandoned 400,000 years ago." Minho frowned. "Are you sure? Maybe they're hiding their real capabilities." "I don't think so," Una said slowly. "I'm also picking up their public broadcasts. Entertainment, news, cultural programs. Admiral, they haven't changed. Not their technology, not their art, not their society. Everything looks exactly like it did when they exiled us." The bridge went quiet. Do-hyun felt something cold settle in his chest. 800,000 years of complete stagnation? That wasn't peace. That was death by another name. "Show me their capital station," Do-hyun ordered. The main display changed to show a massive structure floating in space. The Eternal Concordat, the seat of council power. It was beautiful in its way, with spires and domes that caught the light of nearby stars. But to Do-hyun's eyes it looked like a museum piece, ancient, preserved, lifeless. They stopped, he said quietly. They achieved peace and then they just stopped moving forward. Is that such a bad thing? Yoona asked. Peace is what everyone wants, isn't it? Peace without challenge is just slow extinction, Minho answered. My grandfather told me that. His grandfather told him. We remembered. Do-hyun thought about humanity's journey. 800,000 years ago, humans had been thrown out into the darkness with nothing but their ships and their determination. They had been alone, truly alone for the first time in their history as a spacefaring species, and humans had thrived. They had colonized new worlds. They had engineered themselves to survive in places that would kill normal humans in seconds. They had built Dyson spheres around stars to capture every drop of energy. They had created pocket universes where they could experiment with the laws of physics themselves. Most importantly, they had evolved, not just their bodies but their minds, their culture, their understanding of what it meant to be human. They had become more than what they were, while still keeping the core of what made them human in the first place. Captain, one of the junior officers called out. We're being hailed. It's from the council. Put it through, Do-hyun said. A face appeared on the screen. It was alien with crystalline features that refracted light in strange ways. Councillor Vren, if Do-hyun remembered his history correctly, the current leader of the council. Unknown vessels. Vren's voice came through the translation systems. You have entered council space without permission. Identify yourselves immediately. Do-hyun took a breath. This was the moment. The moment when humanity announced its return to a galaxy that had forgotten them. This is Captain Do-hyun Kim of the Human Expeditionary Fleet Eternal Horizon, he said clearly. We're here to remind you who we are. He cut the transmission before Vren could respond. Minho looked at him with approval. Now we wait for their next move. They'll panic first, Yoona predicted. Then they'll try to negotiate. Then they'll realize they have nothing we want. She was probably right, Do-hyun thought, because the terrible truth was already becoming clear to him. They had come back to find their place in the galaxy again. But the galaxy they had left no longer existed, and the species that had exiled them had become shadows of themselves. This wasn't going to be the triumphant return he had imagined. This was going to be something much sadder. Ambassador Ji-won Lee stepped off the transport shuttle and onto the deck of the Eternal Concordat. She was 28 years old and had spent her entire life training for diplomatic missions, but nothing had prepared her for the feeling of walking through a living museum. The station was enormous, kilometers across, with corridors that stretched away in every direction. But everything looked old. Not dirty or broken, just old. Like someone had built something beautiful once and then decided to never change a single thing about it ever again. 2 council guards escorted her toward the main chamber. They were tall creatures covered in blue scales, carrying weapons that looked ceremonial rather than practical. Ji-won could have disabled both of them in less than a second if she wanted to. Her enhanced reflexes, her reinforced skeleton, her neural combat training, all of it made her so much faster and stronger than these guards that it wasn't even fair to compare them. But she was here to talk, not to fight. That was the whole point of sending a diplomat first. The council chamber was a vast circular room with 12 seats arranged around the center. Each seat was designed for a different alien species, reflecting their unique biology. Crystalline beings, gas-based entities in containment suits, massive creatures that looked like walking trees, small insectoid forms, all of them gathered here to judge humanity once again. Councillor Vren stood at the center, his crystalline body catching the light and throwing rainbow patterns across the walls. Ambassador Lee, he said, his voice translated into human language by systems that were sophisticated but still outdated compared to what humans use now. You stand before the Galactic Council to answer for the crimes of your species. Ji-won kept her face neutral. Crimes committed 800,000 years ago by people who have been dead for longer than your oldest civilizations have existed. I'm here to discuss the present, not the past. The past cannot be forgotten, another counselor spoke up. This one was insectoid, with multiple eyes that glittered in the light. Humanity was exiled for good reason. You were aggressive. You expanded too quickly. You built weapons that frightened us all. And what have you built in the time since? Jiwan asked quietly. She pulled out a data crystal and placed it on the floor in front of her. It projected a hologram showing statistics, images, and information. Humanity now inhabits 40,000 star systems. We've created stable Dyson spheres around 300 stars. We've eliminated disease, hunger, and involuntary death among our people. We've discovered how to create and maintain pocket universes. And we've done all of this while maintaining our core values of individual freedom and collective cooperation. The council members shifted uncomfortably. Vren's crystalline face somehow managed to look disturbed. Impossible. No species can advance that quickly. You could have, Jiwan said. You had 800,000 years. The same amount of time we did. But you chose not to change. Why? No one answered her question. Instead, Vren pressed forward with his agenda. We demand that humanity submit to council authority. You will be allowed to rejoin the galactic community only if you accept our laws, our restrictions, and our judgment. Jiwan wanted to laugh but held it in. You want us to submit to you? Have you looked at your own military strength compared to ours? We have fleets, Vren said defensively. We have weapons. We have been at peace for 600,000 years, but we remember how to fight if we must. At that exact moment, alarms started blaring throughout the station. Vren's face went from disturbed to panicked. What is happening? A technician rushed into the chamber. Counselor, one of our patrol fleets encountered a human fighter craft. The fleet commander ordered a warning shot to be fired. The human vessel responded by disabling 17 of our warships in less than 1 minute. No casualties, but all 17 ships are completely powerless and drifting. The chamber went silent. Jiwan felt a surge of pride mixed with resignation. Commander Hyeji Kang must have been the pilot of that fighter. Hyeji was one of humanity's best. Flying ships that could move faster than thought and respond to threats before they even fully materialized. 17 warships, Jiwan repeated, disabled in under a minute by a single fighter. And Commander Kang made sure not to kill anyone. Do you understand what that means? It means she could have destroyed all 17 ships easily. She chose mercy instead. Vren sank back into his seat. His crystalline body seemed dimmer somehow. What have you become? We became what we needed to be, Jiwan said. She changed the hologram to show historical records. 800,000 years ago, humanity warned you about a threat. We detected signals from dark space, patterns that suggested something massive and hostile was moving toward our galaxy. You dismissed our concerns. You called us paranoid warmongers. You said we were seeing enemies where there were none. The hologram shifted to show images of war. Massive battles in deep space. Weapons that tore holes in reality. Creatures that looked like they were made of living darkness, consuming entire star systems. The Devourers came 200,000 years after you exiled us, Jiwan continued. They were a species that consumed galaxies. They had already destroyed 3 galaxies before reaching ours. They were exactly what humanity had been preparing for. An older counselor, one that looked like a massive tree with a face carved into its bark, spoke in a creaking voice. We never heard of any Devourers. There was no war. Because humanity fought that war alone, Jiwan said. The hologram showed the scope of the conflict. Hundreds of thousands of battles across millions of years. Human fleets fighting desperate holding actions against an enemy that seemed endless. The war lasted 150,000 years. We lost billions of lives. We were pushed to the edge of extinction multiple times. But we won. We destroyed the Devourers completely. Made sure they could never threaten any galaxy ever again. And you never knew because we kept them away from council space the entire time. The chamber was completely silent now. The weight of what Jiwan was saying settled over everyone like a heavy blanket. You were safe because we were strong, Jiwan said. You got to have your 600,000 years of peace because humanity spent 150,000 years at war, protecting a galaxy that had thrown us away. Why didn't you tell us? Vren asked. His voice was small now, defeated. We tried, Jiwan said. We sent messages. We sent evidence. We sent requests for help. You ignored all of it. Eventually, we realized you didn't want to know. You had your peace, your comfortable existence, and you weren't willing to risk it even to help us save the galaxy. Another alarm sounded. The technician returned, looking even more panicked. Counselors, 5 council member species have mobilized their defense fleets. They're moving to intercept the human vessels. Jiwan closed her eyes. This was the part she had been dreading. Please tell them to stand down. You don't want to do this. Why not? Vren asked. Even if you're more advanced, we have numbers. We have thousands of ships, and we have billions of drones, Ji-won said quietly. We have weapons you can't even detect. We have technology that would look like magic to you. Please. I came here to talk, to find a way for us to coexist. Don't turn this into a fight you can't win. But it was too late. The mobilization had begun. The council species, frightened and proud and unwilling to admit their own weakness, were preparing to attack the human fleet. Ji-won opened a communication channel to the Eternal Horizon. Captain Kim, the situation is deteriorating. The council is mobilizing for combat. Do-Yun's voice came back calm and steady. Understood, Ambassador. We'll handle it. No casualties if possible. Agreed, Ji-won said. She looked at Vren and the other counselors. You're about to see what humanity has become. I hope you're ready for it. The hologram changed to show external sensors. Council fleets were converging on human positions from multiple directions. Thousands of ships, impressive by any historical standard, moving into formation. And then the human response began. Space around each council ship suddenly filled with small objects, millions of them, surrounding each vessel in a perfect sphere. The drones had been invisible until that moment, hidden by stealth technology so advanced that the council sensors hadn't even known they were there. Not a single shot was fired. Not a single weapon was charged. The drones just sat there waiting, making it absolutely clear that every council ship was already captured without anyone needing to do anything violent. You've already lost, Ji-won said softly. We could have taken control of this entire station before I even arrived. We could have disabled every ship in council space before you knew we were here. We didn't because we're not here to conquer you. We're here because we wanted to come home. But I'm starting to think there's no home left to come back to. Dr. Sunho Baek stood in front of the assembled council scientists and tried not to feel sorry for them. They looked at him with confusion and fear. These beings who represented the greatest scientific minds of 12 different species. But compared to where humanity had gone, they seemed like children trying to understand advanced mathematics. The council had demanded to know what humans had become during the exile. They wanted answers, wanted to understand how one species could advance so far while they had remained essentially frozen in time. So humanity had sent Sunho to explain. Let me start with the basics, Sunho said. He projected an image of human DNA, the double helix that had defined his species for millions of years. 800,000 years ago, humans were purely biological. We got sick, we aged. We died after maybe 100 years if we were lucky. Our bodies were fragile, limited by the basic rules of organic chemistry. The council scientists nodded. They understood biology, at least the old kind. We don't do that anymore, Sunho continued. He changed the image to show what human DNA looked like now. It was still recognizable as DNA, but it was different in ways that made the council scientists lean forward with interest. We eliminated all genetic diseases first. That was easy, relatively speaking. Then we tackled aging. We figured out how to keep our cells regenerating perfectly forever. Then we went further. A counselor scientist, one of the insectoid species, raised a claw. How far? Sunho smiled. Humans can now survive in hard vacuum for several hours without protection. We can process radiation that would kill you instantly and convert it into energy for our bodies. We can regrow limbs, organs, even parts of our brain if we need to. Our average lifespan is now about 12,000 years, and that's only because some people choose to die eventually. We could potentially live forever if we wanted to. The council scientists made sounds of disbelief. One of them, a being made of crystalline structures similar to Counselor Vren, spoke up. That's impossible. Biological systems don't work that way. There are limits. There were limits, Sunho agreed. But we combined biology with technology. Every human you've seen has nanomachines in their blood. Millions of tiny robots smaller than cells, constantly repairing damage, fighting disease, enhancing our natural abilities. Our bones are reinforced with smart materials that are stronger than any metal you use in your ships. Our muscles are enhanced to generate far more force than natural muscles could. He changed the image again to show the human brain. But this one was different. There were glowing lines running through it, connecting to structures that weren't biological at all. This is the biggest change, Sunho said quietly. We integrated our minds with quantum computers, not replacing our organic brains but enhancing them. Every human is connected to what we call the network, a quantum-entangled consciousness that spans all 40,000 of our star systems. A tree-like counselor scientist creaked forward. You created a hive mind? You destroyed your individuality? No, Sunho said firmly. That's the beautiful part. We're all individuals. We all have our own thoughts, our own personalities, our own choices, but we're also connected. I can communicate instantly with any human anywhere in the galaxy. I can access the collected knowledge of our entire species. I can share experiences, emotions, ideas, without losing who I am as Sunho. He paused, trying to find a way to make them understand. Imagine if you could talk to everyone you ever knew instantly, no matter where they were. Imagine if you could access every book ever written, every discovery ever made just by thinking about it. Imagine if you were never truly alone, but also never forced to think like everyone else. That's what the network gives us. The council scientists were silent. Sunho could see them struggling with the concept, trying to fit it into their understanding of how minds should work. But why? The insectoid scientist finally asked. Why change yourself so much? Why not stay as you were? Because we had to, Sunho answered. He changed the display to show historical records. Let me tell you about the Devourers. The images that appeared made several council scientists recoil. The Devourers didn't look like any normal life form. They looked like tears in space itself, like holes in reality that consumed everything they touched, massive beyond comprehension. Each individual Devourer was the size of a planet. They came from dark space 200,000 years after you exiled us, Sunho explained. A species that fed on the matter and energy of entire galaxies. They had already destroyed 3 galaxies before reaching ours. They were coming and we were the only ones in their path who knew about them. He showed battle footage, human fleets engaging the Devourers in desperate combat, ships being torn apart by forces that bent physics itself, entire solar systems being consumed in moments. The war lasted 150,000 years, Sunho said. We lost billions of people. Entire colonies were destroyed. We were pushed to the edge of extinction dozens of times, and we realized that if we wanted to survive, we had to change. We had to become something more than what we were. The display showed the progression of human evolution during the war. The first genetic modifications for survival in hostile environments. The development of neural enhancements for faster reaction times. The creation of the network for perfect coordination across vast distances. The integration of technology and biology into something new. We didn't want to become what we are now, Sunho said. We wanted to stay human in the old way. But the universe doesn't care what we want. It only cares about what we can do. So we did what we had to do. We evolved. We transcended our limitations. And we won. How? The crystalline scientist asked. How do you defeat an enemy like that? By becoming better than them, Sunho answered. We developed weapons that could tear holes in reality just like they could. We learned to manipulate quantum fields to create shields they couldn't penetrate. We built ships powered by harnessed black holes that could match their speed and strength. Most importantly, we worked together in ways they couldn't understand. He showed the final battle of the war. Human fleets numbering in the millions, all coordinated through the network. Executing strategies so complex that no individual mind could have conceived them. The Devourers being driven back, destroyed, eliminated completely from existence. We made sure they could never threaten anyone ever again, Sunho said. We hunted down every single one of them. We sealed the passages they used to travel between galaxies. We left monitoring stations in dark space to watch for anything like them ever emerging again. We protected the entire galaxy, including Council space, even though you had abandoned us. General Yunjiro, who had been standing quietly at the back of the room, stepped forward. She was in her 40s with a scarred face and eyes that had seen too much combat. The Council wants to know what we've become, she said in her rough voice. Here's the simple answer. We became survivors. We became protectors. We became everything we needed to be. And what are you now? The tree-like scientist asked. After the war ended, what did you do with all that power? We built, Sunho said. He changed the display to show human civilization now. Massive cities floating in space, Dyson spheres capturing the energy of entire stars, pocket universes where humans experimented with different laws of physics, art and music and literature that pushed boundaries the Council couldn't imagine. We didn't stop evolving just because the war ended. We kept pushing forward, kept discovering, kept growing. But at what cost? Counselor Vren had entered the room without anyone noticing. You say you're still human, but how can you be? You've changed everything about yourselves. You're not the species we exiled anymore. Sunho looked at him for a long moment. You're right. We're not the same species you exiled. We're better. Stronger, smarter, more capable in every way, but we're still human where it matters. We still love. We still dream. We still create and laugh and cry. We still value individual freedom and collective good. We didn't lose our humanity. We expanded it. You became monsters, Vren said quietly. No, General Yunji replied. We became what we needed to be to survive. You became nothing. You stayed the same for 800,000 years. No growth, no change, no evolution. You chose comfort over challenge. You chose stagnation over progress. That's why we're having this conversation. Not because we changed, but because you didn't. The room fell silent. The council scientists looked at each other, at their own unchanged bodies, at their outdated technology. For the first time, Sunho thought he saw understanding in their faces. Not acceptance, not yet, but at least recognition of what they had lost during all those centuries of peace. Can we learn? The insectoid scientist asked finally. Can you teach us what you know? Sunho considered the question carefully. That depends on whether you're willing to change. Evolution isn't comfortable. Growth isn't safe. If you want to become more than what you are, you have to be willing to take risks, to face fears, to transform yourselves in ways that might frighten you. He looked at each of them in turn. The question isn't whether we'll teach you. The question is whether you're brave enough to learn. Counselor Thane was different from the others. He was one of the mantis-like beings, tall and angular with multiple limbs that moved in precise, calculated ways. But unlike most of his fellow counselors, he had actually listened to what the humans were saying. He had heard the words beneath the words, understood the tragedy beneath the triumph. We need to make peace with them, Thane said to the assembled council. They were meeting in private now, away from the humans, trying to figure out what to do. We were wrong to exile them. We were wrong to ignore their warnings. We need to admit that and move forward. Never, Counselor Vren replied. His crystalline body seemed to glow with anger. They come here with their superior technology and their superior attitude and expect us to bow down? We built this peace. We maintained order for 600,000 years. They have no right to judge us. They're not judging us, Thane said patiently. They're just showing us what they became while we stayed the same. That's not judgment. That's just truth. An elderly counselor, one of the gas-based entities in a containment suit, spoke up. Perhaps we can compromise. We allow them back into council space, but with restrictions. Limits on their technology, their territorial expansion, their military capabilities. They get to rejoin the galactic community and we get to maintain some control. Thane wanted to scream, but kept his composure. Have you not been paying attention? They don't need our permission. They don't want our control. They came back because they wanted to reconnect with the place they came from. But we're showing them there's nothing here worth reconnecting to. The debate continued for hours, with different factions arguing different positions. Some wanted war, impossible as that clearly was. Some wanted complete capitulation. Most wanted some kind of middle ground that would let them pretend they still mattered in a galaxy where humanity had clearly surpassed them in every way. Finally, Admiral Minho Choi was invited to present humanity's position. He stood before the council, an old man by human standards, though they knew now that he could live for thousands more years if he chose. His scarred face showed no emotion as he listened to the council's proposal. Let me make sure I understand, Minho said slowly. You want humanity to rejoin the Galactic Council, but only if we agree to limit our technology to match yours. Only if we agree to not expand into certain territories. Only if we agree to submit to council authority on military matters. Yes, Vren said. That's correct. Those are our terms for allowing you back. Minho looked at him for a long moment. Then he started laughing. It wasn't a cruel laugh or a mocking laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had just heard something so absurd that they couldn't help but find it funny. Allowing us back, Minho repeated. You think you have the power to allow or disallow anything we do? You think we need your permission? You think we came here to ask for your approval? He stopped laughing and his face went hard. We came here to see if the galaxy we left behind was worth remembering. We came here to see if the species that exiled us had grown, changed, become something worth knowing. And what did we find? Stagnation, fear. Species so comfortable in their peace that they forgot how to dream. How dare you, Vren said, standing up. We maintained peace for 600,000 years. We created a stable, ordered galaxy. We achieved something no one else ever has. You achieved nothing, Minho said flatly. You survived. That's all. You didn't grow. You didn't evolve. You didn't push any boundaries or make any discoveries or create anything new. You just existed, comfortable and safe and slowly dying without even knowing it. Before anyone could respond, alarms started blaring again. But these weren't the same alarms as before. These were different, more urgent, more desperate. A technician ran into the chamber. "Counselors, we have a situation. The Hardline faction has launched an attack on the human delegation. They've deployed quantum disruptors at the diplomatic quarters. They're trying to kill Ambassador Lee and her team." Thane felt his heart sink. This was exactly what he had feared. The hardliners, too proud and too frightened to accept reality, had decided to do something stupid and desperate. Minho's face didn't change expression. He just touched a device on his wrist and said, "Captain Bora Shin, you are authorized to secure the station. No casualties if possible." "Understood, Admiral," a female voice responded. "We've been in position for the last 3 hours. Initiating now, 3 hours." They had been in position for 3 hours. That meant human special forces had infiltrated the Eternal Concordat long before this meeting even started, had been waiting and watching, ready for exactly this kind of situation. The lights flickered. Systems throughout the station started reporting failures and then immediate recoveries, but under new control. In the security feeds that appeared on the council chamber screens, they could see what was happening. Human soldiers wearing armor that seemed to absorb light itself were moving through the station with impossible speed and precision. The assassins who had attacked the diplomatic quarters were already down, unconscious but alive, disarmed before they could complete their attack. Ambassador Jiwon Lee was standing calmly in the middle of the aftermath, not a scratch on her, while her security team finished securing the area. Throughout the station, Council military forces were being disarmed. Not violently, not with excessive force, just efficiently. Human soldiers would appear, remove weapons, restrain anyone who resisted, and disappear again. It was over in minutes. Captain Bora Shin appeared on the main screen. She was in her 30s with a face that showed no emotion and eyes that missed nothing. "Admiral Minho, the Eternal Concordat is secured. All potential threats neutralized. All Council military personnel disarmed and detained. 0 casualties. Awaiting further orders." "How many civilians noticed?" Minho asked. "Approximately none, sir," Bora replied. "We maintained standard station operations throughout. Most people don't even know anything happened." Minho nodded. "Well done, Captain. Hold position and wait for my signal." He turned back to the council where Vren and the others were staring in horror at the screens. "Do you understand now?" Minho asked quietly. "Your capital station, the most secure location in council space, was completely infiltrated and secured in 11 minutes. We could have done this at any time. We could have taken control of everything without anyone even noticing. But we didn't because we're not here to conquer you." Outside in the space around the Concordat, Commander Hyeji Kang was leading her fighter wing through another demonstration. Council fleets had mobilized again, bigger forces this time, determined to show strength. And once again, human drones surrounded every single ship before anyone even knew they were there. Billions of drones. Literally billions. Each one small enough to hide in sensor shadows. Each one powerful enough to disable a warship on its own. They formed perfect spheres around every council vessel. Not threatening, just present, making it absolutely clear that humanity could end any fight before it even started. "We don't want your submission," Minho said to the council. He seemed tired now, like he was explaining something to children who refused to understand. "We don't want your territory. We don't want your resources. We don't want to rule you or control you or even really interact with you much. We came back because we wanted to see if there was anything left of the galaxy we remembered. We wanted to see if you had become something worth knowing." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "But you haven't. You're the same as you were 800,000 years ago. Maybe you're proud of that. Maybe you think stability is the highest achievement. But to us you look like a museum exhibit. Beautiful, yes. Interesting, certainly. But not alive." "Not really." Vren finally seemed to break under the pressure. His crystalline body dimmed, his voice became small. "What do you want from us then? Why did you come back at all?" "We wanted acknowledgement," Minho said simply. "We wanted you to admit that you were wrong. Wrong to exile us. Wrong to ignore our warnings. Wrong to choose comfort over challenge. We wanted you to see what we became and understand that we became it, because you forced us to. We wanted you to take responsibility for your choices. Minho looked at him with something that might have been respect. Then maybe we can start over. Not as council and members, but as equals. Not as rulers and subjects, but as neighbors. We have a lot we could teach you, if you're willing to learn. But only if you're willing to change, to grow, to become more than what you are now. He looked around at all of them, these representatives of 12 species who had built a peaceful galaxy, and then stopped moving forward. The choice is yours. You can keep pretending you're still in control. Keep hiding behind your old ways and your old rules. Or you can admit that the galaxy has passed you by and ask us to help you catch up. Either way, we're leaving soon. This place holds nothing for us anymore. Thane stood up. I admit we were wrong. On behalf of my people, I acknowledge that the exile was a mistake. That ignoring your warnings was a mistake. That choosing stagnation over growth was a mistake. And I ask, humbly, that you help us become better than what we are. One by one, other counselors stood up. Not all of them, not even most of them, but enough. Enough to show that some species at least understood what had happened and wanted to change. Captain Do-hyun Kim stood on the observation deck of the Eternal Horizon and looked out at council space for what would probably be the last time. 3 months had passed since the confrontation at the Concordat. 3 months of negotiations, explanations, and demonstrations. 3 months of trying to bridge a gap that felt wider than the galaxy itself. And now finally humanity was leaving. Dr. Yuna Park joined him at the window. She had completed her analysis of council civilization, thousands of pages documenting what had happened during the 800,000 years of humanity's absence. The report made for depressing reading. No new art forms developed in 600,000 years, Yuna said quietly. No new philosophical movements. No new forms of government or social organization. They perfected what they had and then just stopped creating. Their museums have been showing the same exhibits for hundreds of millennia. Their theaters perform the same plays. Their musicians play the same songs. What about science? Do-hyun asked, though he already knew the answer. Essentially frozen, Yuna replied. They made a few incremental improvements to existing technology, but no fundamental breakthroughs. No new understanding of physics. No revolutionary discoveries. They knew everything they needed to know to maintain their peaceful existence, so they stopped looking for more. Do-hyun thought about that. A civilization that had answered all its questions and then stopped asking new ones. It should have been a paradise, a perfect society where everyone was content. Instead, it felt like a graveyard. Dr. Sunho Bayek had finished his medical analysis of council species. The results were even more troubling than the cultural stagnation. Their birth rates have been declining for 300,000 years, Sunho had reported. Not because of any disease or environmental problem. They're just having fewer children. When life is comfortable and safe, when there's no challenge or struggle, biological imperative fades. They're slowly going extinct without even realizing it. Humanity had offered medical technology to help, genetic treatments that could stabilize populations, ensure healthy reproduction rates, extend lifespans even further than council species already had. Some had accepted. Many had refused, seeing it as human interference in natural processes. Admiral Minho Choi approached them, carrying a data pad. The final tallies are in. 8 council species have requested permission to send delegations to human space. They want to study with us, learn from us, see if they can bring back what they've lost to their own people. And the other 4 species? Do-hyun asked. They're staying as they are, Minho said with a shrug. They don't see stagnation as a problem. They like their peace and their comfort, and they're not interested in changing. That was their right, Do-hyun supposed. Humanity couldn't force evolution on species that didn't want it. But it still felt sad, like watching someone choose to fade away rather than fight to stay alive. Ambassador Ji-won Lee had spent the last 3 months in intensive negotiations with moderate council members. She looked exhausted when she returned to the ship, but there was also hope in her eyes. Councillor Thane and his faction have proposed creating an exchange program, Ji-won reported. Young people from council species spending time in human space, learning our ways, and then returning to share what they've learned. It's a start. Just a start, Do-hyun agreed, but better than nothing. The real tragedy was only now becoming clear to all of them. Humanity had come back expecting to find enemies or friends or at least equals. Instead, they had found fossils. Living fossils still breathing and thinking and existing, but fundamentally unchanged from what they had been almost 1 million years ago. I understand the title now. Yuna said quietly. We regret it. Not because they were hostile. Not because we were wrong about anything. But because we came back hoping to find something familiar, something we could reconnect to, and instead we found nothing. Just emptiness wearing the mask of peace. Do-hyun nodded. That was exactly it. The regret wasn't about the conflict or the demonstration of power. The regret was about the loss of what could have been. If the Council had listened to humanity's warnings 800,000 years ago, if they had worked together against the Devourers, if they had continued pushing forward and growing and evolving together, imagine what the galaxy could have become. Instead, humanity had survived and thrived alone, and the Council had stagnated in comfortable peace. Two paths that had diverged so far that they could barely understand each other anymore. Commander Hyeji Kang brought her fighters in for final docking. She had spent weeks training with Council pilots, trying to share knowledge about advanced flight techniques. It hadn't gone well. The Council pilots were skilled with their outdated technology, but they couldn't adapt to the speed and complexity of human systems. Not because they weren't intelligent enough, but because they had spent so long not challenging themselves that they had lost the ability to learn quickly. It's like trying to teach calculus to someone who barely remembers basic math, Hyeji had said in frustration. Not because they're stupid, but because they haven't exercised those mental muscles in so long that they've atrophied. General Yoonji-ro had better luck with ground forces training. Some of the younger Council soldiers had thrown themselves into learning human combat techniques with genuine enthusiasm. They would return to their homeworlds as elite warriors, carrying knowledge that might help their people remember what it meant to strive and struggle and grow. But it would be slow. So slow. It would take thousands of years for Council species to recover what they had lost if they ever did, and humanity would continue racing forward, exploring and discovering and evolving at a pace the Council couldn't hope to match. Captain Bora Shin and her special forces had compiled detailed reports on Council security systems, not to exploit them but to help improve them. The reports sat in Council databases waiting for someone to actually read and implement them. Bora doubted anyone would. Improving security meant acknowledging that threats existed. The Council had spent so long in peace that they had forgotten how to even think about danger. Final departure preparations are complete, the ship's AI reported. All personnel have returned to the fleet. All equipment has been recovered. We're ready to leave whenever you give the order, Captain. Do-hyun took one last look at the Eternal Concordat floating in the distance, the beautiful ancient station that represented everything the Council had built and everything they had failed to become. It was a monument to a civilization that had answered all its questions and then stopped asking new ones. Take us home, Do-hyun said quietly. The human fleet began moving, ships the size of moons turning in perfect coordination through the network. They would return to the 40,000 star systems that humanity called home now. They would return to worlds where challenges existed, where people pushed boundaries, where evolution was not just accepted but celebrated. Minho stood beside Do-hyun, watching the Council space fade behind them. Do you think they'll make it? The old admiral asked. Do you think they'll recover? Some of them will, Do-hyun said. The ones who are willing to change. The ones who understand that comfort is not the same as fulfillment. The ones who can remember how to dream, and the others. They'll fade away, Do-hyun said sadly. Slowly, peacefully, without even realizing what they're losing. They'll have their perfect peace right up until the moment there's no one left to enjoy it. Jiwon appeared on the bridge one last time before the jump to hyperspace. She carried a message from Counselor Thane. He wanted me to thank you, Jiwon said, for coming back, for showing them what they had become. He said it hurt seeing the truth, but it needed to hurt. Pain is how you know you're still alive. He's wise, Minho observed. Maybe there's hope for them after all. Maybe, Jiwon agreed. But it's going to be their journey now. We gave them everything we could. Knowledge, technology, medical assistance, cultural exchanges. The rest is up to them. The fleet reached the edge of Council space. Beyond lay the vast darkness between galaxies, and then the human territories, home, real home. Not the museum they had found here. Engaging hyperspace drives, the AI announced. But before they jumped, Do-hyun opened a final transmission to Council space. Not to the government or the Council or any official body, just a general broadcast that anyone could receive if they wanted to. This is Captain Do-hyun Kim of the human fleet Eternal Horizon, he said. We came back to see if the galaxy we left behind was worth remembering. We found something different than we expected. Not enemies, but not friends either. Just species who chose a different path than we did. He paused, choosing his words carefully. We don't blame you for exiling us. You were afraid of what we might become. You were right to be afraid. We became something powerful and strange and different from what you knew. But we also became something wonderful. We became what we needed to be to survive. The galaxy is vast, Doyun continued. There's room for different ways of existing. You chose peace and stability. We chose challenge and growth. Neither path is wrong, but we can't walk the same road anymore. We're too different now. To those who want to learn, who want to grow, who want to remember what it feels like to dream impossible dreams, our doors are open. Come to human space. Study with us. Challenge yourselves.